Right behind me is a St. Louis landfill with radioactive waste buried beneath it. The same nuclear materials that was used to make the atomic bomb in World War II that the US used on Japan. This radioactive waste has had a lethal history of affecting people in the surrounding areas. And today there is still a chemical fire burning beneath the surface that the community is still worried might reach the radioactive material. Let's start off with, how did the material get here? Well, during World War II, the efforts to create the atomic bomb were known as the Manhattan Project. And the uranium for that bomb was all enriched here in downtown St. Louis at Mallinckrodt. And a crazy side note I just had to mention, Mallinckrodt is the only company in the US that is allowed to sell cocaine. Anyway, back to the radioactive waste. So after they enriched the uranium, they brought all the atomic waste to the Lambert Airport property and just dumped it there, all exposed out in the open. The materials then leached into Coldwater Creek. It's no surprise that the families that lived around Coldwater Creek were subject to generations of increased risk of rare cancers. This is a scary map of all the people in the area that developed rare cancers. In 1973, the radioactive waste was moved again, except now it was dumped here illegally in the landfill in Bridgeton. In 1989, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, classified this area as hazardous and dangerously contaminated. So they took over the site as a Superfund site, which just means the government would be in charge of investigating and removing hazardous materials. Most all of the radioactive material was located in an area called Operable Unit 1, or OU1, but some of the material was known to be in OU2 as well. In 2010, the landfill employees discovered there was a subsurface smoldering event that had started in the OU2 area of the landfill. This was basically an underground chemical fire. And by 2013, the area of the underground fire had grown to the size of 15 football fields. The St. Louis community and the surrounding areas were extremely concerned that the fire could reach the radioactive material. There were many rises to action and pushes of the government to come and help with the issue in St. Louis. One of these popular rises to action was a documentary film called Atomic Homefront that I highly recommend you check out. In 2015, the EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and several other entities announced that they were going to make a physical isolation barrier to prevent the spread of the fire to the radioactive materials in OU1. Was the response quick enough though? Not only are the people in the community still worried about exposure of fire to the radioactive material in OU1, but even today in 2025, Missouri officials still claim there's a high likelihood that there is radioactive material in OU2, which is where the fire is. But whoa, hold on a second. Does any of this even matter? I'm not trying to spread fear about this issue, but is it possible that the materials in the landfill are actually safe? In all of my research, there are extremely loud expert opinions on both sides of the issue. The sides both claim that the radioactive material doesn't cause any harm to the public at all, and the other side says actually it's killing the population. Also, was the radioactive material more dangerous back then when it was exposed? And is it safer now that it's buried in the landfill? Many experts on the side of it being safe claim that the exposure from radiation from the waste in the landfill is extremely low, and things that you do in your everyday life expose you to more radiation, like driving a car. All the testing of the air and the surface of the land shows safe levels of radiation. The same goes for the areas around Coldwater Creek. But on the other side, people are claiming that doesn't soundly explain the effects that people have been seeing. The Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services found in a 2014 report that there were higher rates of cancer in the zip codes that surround the Westlake landfill and Coldwater Creek. Cancer researchers at WashU also said that the higher rates of leukemia in the area warranted further research, but said it was too early to determine if environmental contaminants caused the issue. There are also higher rates of a rare appendix cancer, which is odd because appendix cancer is not usually radiation related. But even if the air and the surface are safe at the landfill, what about deeper underground? What happens if the Missouri River floods through the landfill? Or if a tornado rips through the land? Or if the fire reaches OU1? Well, that would certainly spread dangerous material further into the community. There needs to be a safe removal of the material from the area. So finally today, there is a scheduled cleanup for the radioactive waste in the areas around the airport in Hazelwood. It will be led by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and it will start in May of 2027 and end in 2038. Many people have already criticized their plan. One, for being too slow with the cleanup, and two, not removing everything that they should, as they would still be leaving behind 3 times the amount of radioactive isotopes that the U.S. Department of Energy says is safe. The Army Corps of Engineers will release their 5-year review about the contamination in the affected areas very soon, possibly this month, and we can get some more information about what they have observed. So until then, we'll have to wait and see what happens next in this saga. Thank you very much for watching to the end of this video, and yes, it does smell bad here next to the landfill, so drop a like for my nose, and check back into my page for more St. Louis content.